My 6-year-old daughter sat cross-legged on the floor, coloring in her Disney princess book. She was humming to herself, blissfully unaware that her cousins were boarding a plane to Orlando without her. The living room was quiet. Too quiet. I stood at the kitchen counter, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long gone cold. My phone buzzed again. Another photo. This time it was Maddie and Chloe in matching mini ears, their arms around Grandma, grinning in front of Cinderella's castle. The caption read, 3 generations of magic. 3, not 4, not 5. Just them. No one had called to tell me. Not even a heads up. I found out when Chloe accidentally tagged me in an Instagram story with sparkly mouse ears and a caption that said, "Best trip ever. Wish everyone could have come." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even reply. I just stared at the screen until it blurred and my coffee turned cold in my hands. Then my daughter looked up from the floor with her big, curious eyes and asked, "Mommy, do you think I'll ever meet Elsa for real?" I swallowed hard. "Maybe, baby. Maybe someday." She smiled like that was enough, but it shouldn't have been. When I was growing up, my mom, Elaine, was the glue of our extended family. She organized birthdays, summer road trips, even themed family reunions where everyone wore matching shirts with awkward clip art on them. She used to say things like, "Family is everything," and "there's nothing I wouldn't do for my grandkids." But somewhere along the line, everything started to mean everyone but my daughter. My daughter's name is Lily. She's my only child. Sweet, smart, a little shy. She says, "Thank you," even when you hand her something as small as a sticker. And for some reason, my mother decided she didn't count as a real grandkid. I used to excuse it. She probably forgot to add her to the Christmas pajama list. She didn't mean to only post pictures of the other cousins. She probably just forgot. But how do you forget a 6-year-old who calls you grandma and draws you hearts in crayon? When Lily was born, I wasn't married. I was 23, still in college, still figuring things out. My mom was disappointed, a word she used like a knife wrapped in linen. She held Lily once in the hospital. Once. Then handed her back like she was doing me a favor. "It's not her fault," she said, "but I didn't raise you to end up like this." That was 6 years ago. Since then, she's been at every birthday party for my brother's twins. She's taken Chloe on girls' spa weekends. She bought Maddie a pony, a real one, for Christmas. And for Lily? Last year, she gave her a puzzle missing 3 pieces. Said it must have come that way. The Disney trip wasn't the betrayal. It was just the final stamp. I wasn't angry that Lily wasn't invited. I was angry that she was deliberately left out, again, and that no one thought we'd notice or care. But Lily noticed. She noticed the new frozen suitcase Grandma gave Maddie. She noticed the group video call that mysteriously lost connection before she could say hi. And she noticed when my mother finally texted back and said, "It was just too expensive to bring everyone. Hope you understand." I didn't reply. I just sipped my coffee. But Lily did something else. She walked to the kitchen drawer, pulled out the envelope Travis, my fiancé, had helped her decorate months ago and said, "Mommy said you say that. Here's your surprise." I blinked. She held it in her tiny hands like it was something sacred. The envelope was white, with crooked glitter letters that read, "For Grandma." I had almost forgotten it existed. We made it during a rainy afternoon, back when Lily had asked why Grandma never came to her dance recital. Travis had printed something that day. He wouldn't tell me what. Just said, "It's for when Lily's ready." Apparently she was. I knelt beside her and asked, "Are you sure?" She nodded. "You said people should know when they're not nice." Then she climbed onto the couch, set the envelope gently in my lap, and went back to coloring. And I sat there staring at it, feeling a storm begin to rise. Because whatever was in that envelope wasn't just paper. It was the truth, wrapped in glitter, and 6 years of silence. The next morning, I placed the envelope in my purse. I didn't plan to. I told myself it was just for safekeeping, that Lily might change her mind, that she was 6 and didn't fully understand the weight of what she was doing. But deep down, I knew she understood. Maybe not all the details, not the way adults weaponize silence or wrap rejection in polite words. But kids like Lily, they understand absence. They understand when someone's love skips over them and lands gently on everyone else. And when that happens enough times, even a child starts to build her own kind of truth. That afternoon, my mother sent another photo in the family group chat. It was a picture of the kids eating Mickey-shaped waffles. Everyone looked joyful, sun-drenched, and sticky with syrup. Someone had typed, "We'll bring back souvenirs." Lily looked up at me while I read it. "Can I tell Grandma something at brunch tomorrow?" I hesitated. "You can always talk to Grandma." She shook her head. "Not talk. Just give her the envelope. Then she'll know." There was no resentment in her voice. No bitterness. Just quiet determination. And that scared me more than if she'd screamed. Brunch at my mother's house had been planned for weeks. A little post-Disney debrief where she'd share the magic with those of us who hadn't gone. My brother and his wife would be there, the cousins would bring their souvenirs, and I was expected to smile politely like we always did. Except this time, there would be an envelope. And my daughter, in her sparkly purple dress with tiny silver shoes, would be the one delivering it. That morning, Lily asked if she could curl her hair. She sat perfectly still as I twisted the wand through her soft brown strands. Her eyes were focused on the mirror, but she wasn't admiring the curls. She was thinking. "I hope she likes my surprise," she whispered. "She'll notice you, baby," I said. "I promise." But I didn't know if that was true. We arrived 10 minutes early. My mom's house looked like a page from a Southern Living magazine. Perfect porch swing, oversized wreath, fresh hydrangeas. The smell of cinnamon rolls hit us the moment the door opened. "Look who's here." My mother beamed, her arms outstretched. "Tessa!" And little Lily, look at you. She gave Lily a one-armed hug, already turning away before Lily could say anything. Then she leaned in and whispered, "Try to make her feel included today, okay?" Like Lily was a responsibility. Like I had brought my guilt to brunch in a tutu. I didn't respond. I just followed her in, holding Lily's hand tightly in mine. The table was already set. My brother's kids were seated next to my mom, chattering excitedly about rides and fireworks. In front of each grandchild was a small gift bag. Disney-themed, shiny, full. Lily didn't have one. My mom glanced over. "Oh, sorry, sweetie. I didn't know you were coming today." "I've never missed brunch," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Well," she smiled, too wide. "We'll find her something later. Maybe a cookie?" Lily didn't say a word. She just sat quietly, legs swinging under the chair, her envelope pressed between her palms. No one else seemed to notice. But I did. I noticed the way she stopped making eye contact. I noticed the way she folded her napkin 3 times before placing it gently on her lap. I noticed the way she stared at the other kids' goodie bags without blinking. That's when I leaned in close and asked, "Do you want to give it to her now?" She looked up at me, small but steady. Yes. It happened after the dishes were cleared and the mimosas were poured. Lily stood up slowly, walked around the table, and stopped right in front of my mother. "Grandma," she said softly. My mother looked at her, still smiling but distracted. "Yes, sweetheart?" Lily held out the envelope. "You forgot me again. Mommy said sometimes people don't remember unless they see it." She placed the envelope gently in my mother's lap and walked back to her chair without another word. The room fell still. My brother raised an eyebrow. His wife looked confused. "What is it?" my mom asked, laughing awkwardly. No one answered. She peeled open the flap, pulling out the folded paper inside. As she unfolded it, I watched her face shift. Slowly, subtly, but unmistakably. Her fingers trembled just slightly as she read the first line, then the second. Then she looked at me. "What is this?" she asked, her voice tighter now. "Why would you—" But I didn't answer, because it wasn't my voice she needed to hear. It was Lily's. And Lily had already said enough. My mother didn't open the envelope right away. She just stared at it like it was something fragile or dangerous. The kind of thing that, once seen, can't be unseen. Lily sat back down beside me, folding her hands neatly in her lap, not saying a word. Her tiny silver shoes barely touched the floor. Across the table, my brother shifted in his seat. "What's that, Mom?" he asked, casually, trying to cut through the silence. "Some kind of letter," she said slowly, her voice a shade too loud. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched. My mother looked at me again. Not confused now, but defensive. Like she already knew this wasn't a thank you note. She opened the envelope with careful fingers, unfolded the paper, and began to read. It wasn't a long letter, just 2 paragraphs. But I knew exactly what it said, because I helped Lily write it, months ago, back when she asked me why Grandma never came to her birthday parties. Back when she waited by the door for a card that never came. Back when she still made excuses for her. Back when I still did too. We wrote the letter together at the kitchen table. I told her she didn't have to give it to anyone, that it was just a way to say what was in her heart. But she'd kept it. She'd kept it for this moment. And now my mother was reading words written in the soft, looping handwriting of a 6-year-old. "Dear Grandma, I don't know why you don't like me, but I wish you did. Mommy says not everyone is kind, but I still love you. It hurts when you take Maddie and Chloe and not me. I see when you give them things and not me. I know when I'm left out. But Mommy says it's not my fault. I wanted you to know, so maybe you remember next time. Love, Lily." My mother's hand shook as she turned the paper over and saw the second sheet. It was a photo, Lily and me at her last dance recital. She was standing center stage in a blue tutu, beaming. I had captured the moment she curtsied. The one Grandma missed because something came up. On the back of the photo, Lily had written in pink marker, "I was here. You just didn't see me." My mother's face went blank. She folded the letter back up too neatly, like if she creased the corners tight enough she could erase what she'd just read. She cleared her throat. "This is dramatic," she said. "She's just a child." "She's a child who notices," I said quietly. "Children don't understand these things." "She does," I said, "because she lives them." The table was silent. Even the kids had stopped fidgeting. Maddie stared at the empty gift bag in front of Lily. My brother's wife looked at her lap. No one jumped in to defend her. Not this time. My mother blinked fast, like something was caught in her eye. Then she laughed. "I don't need to be guilt-tripped in my own home." "No one's guilt-tripping you," I said. "She just wanted you to see. She's 6. She's 6, and she knew enough to bring this." There was a pause. Then Lily, in the calmest, clearest voice I'd ever heard from her, said, "It's okay if you don't want me, Grandma, but I don't want to be invisible anymore." It landed like thunder. My mother's mouth opened, closed. She looked around the table for someone to save her. Some ally, some interruption, something. But no one said anything. Not even my brother. That silence? That was louder than any accusation. Because for the first time, she was forced to see it. All of it. Not the envelope, not the photo, but what she had created. A child who had to learn at 6 years old how to speak her pain in writing. We left early. Lily gathered her things without being asked. She tucked the envelope back into her backpack. Careful, like it was made of glass. No one stopped us at the door. No one tried to smooth it over. There were no hugs, no cheerful, "See you next times." Just the sound of our footsteps on hardwood and the echo of a truth no one could unhear. In the car, Lily was quiet. She held the photo in her lap like it was both a shield and a goodbye. "Do you think she read it all?" she asked. I turned around to face her. "I think she heard you." She nodded once, then looked out the window. and for the first time, she looked like a child who wasn't carrying a question anymore. That evening, Travis got home just after sunset. I was sitting at the kitchen table with Lily, helping her peel off the stickers she'd accidentally layered too tightly onto her workbook. Her little fingers worked at the edges, concentrating, focused, not on the mess of the day, but on this one small task she could control. He kissed the top of her head. "Hey, sweetheart." She looked up at him. I gave Grandma my surprise. Travis glanced at me. "She did," I said, and she was perfect. He didn't ask what happened next. He didn't have to. He just sat beside her, resting his chin on his hand as she peeled off another sticker. "You were brave," he said quietly. Lily nodded once. Then she stood, grabbed her backpack, and headed to her room. She didn't say much that night. Didn't cry. Didn't ask what would happen next. And somehow, that silence said more than words could. When the house was quiet, I pulled Travis aside and told him everything. How the brunch unfolded, how Lily stood up, how she spoke, and how my mother didn't. "She folded the letter like it was trash," I said, pacing now, my hands curled into fists. Like Lily's pain was an inconvenience. Travis leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "She's never going to change," I said. "She didn't even look sorry." "No," he said. "She didn't." I looked at him. "So what now? Do we wait for her to reach out? Do we act like it didn't happen? Again?" He was quiet for a beat. Then he said, "We don't wait for anyone." The next morning, I woke up to a single unread message on my phone. It was from my mother. "I'm sorry if Lily felt left out. I'll try to be more mindful next time. But I really don't appreciate being ambushed like that. You could have talked to me privately." No mention of the letter. No mention of the photo. No apology to Lily. Just a soft shuffle of blame disguised as diplomacy. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I placed the phone face down and didn't reply. I didn't need to, because this time, silence belonged to me. In the days that followed, there were no follow-up calls, no awkward check-ins, no, "Maybe we should talk." Just distance. And oddly, it felt like peace. I wasn't navigating group chats where Lily's name was forgotten. I wasn't watching holiday plans be made around her absence. I wasn't editing my tone to avoid being too sensitive. We were just living. One evening, Lily and I made pancakes in the shape of stars. We burned 3 before getting one right. We laughed the kind of laugh that bubbles from your belly. Unforced, pure. After we cleaned up, she asked if we could send the extra ones to our elderly neighbor, Miss Rita, because she always gives me strawberries. She wasn't thinking about the envelope anymore. She wasn't waiting by the door for someone who never showed up. She was just being a kid. And that shift, it was like watching something uncoil from around her spirit. That weekend, we went to the park as a family. Lily brought her scooter, Travis packed snacks, and I left my phone in the car. We laid on the grass, watching clouds drift across the sky, naming them. "That one looks like a castle," Lily said. I pointed. "That one's a pony." "That one looks like a mouse," Travis added. Lily laughed. "A Mickey Mouse?" We all laughed with her. She didn't say it with resentment. She just said it like a child naming shapes in the sky. Like Disney wasn't a wound anymore. Like it was just another place. And that was when I knew we had already found our magic. Later that night, while Lily was asleep, I opened the drawer in my nightstand. Inside was the original copy of the letter. The one we'd written together before Lily copied it in her own hand. I smoothed it out gently, reading the words again. I know when I'm left out. There was a time when I thought protecting Lily meant shielding her from the truth, covering it up with distractions, soft lies, and second chances no one had asked for. But now I knew better. Protecting her meant helping her speak, even if it made people uncomfortable. Even if it made me the villain in someone else's story. Because my job wasn't to keep the peace. It was to keep her safe. A few days later, Lily came home from school with a paper crown on her head. "We were all princesses today," she said proudly. She didn't need Grandma to tell her she was special. She didn't need matching ears or glitter bags. She had her voice. And she had us. And that, finally, was enough. It had been a week since the brunch. 7 days since Lily placed her envelope on the table like it was a truth wrapped in paper and glitter. 7 days since we walked out of my mother's house and didn't look back. And not a single word since. Not from her, not from my brother, not from anyone in that room. You'd think that silence would hurt, that it would feel like a wound. But it didn't. It felt like a door had finally closed. And this time, we weren't standing on the outside. We were just somewhere else. Somewhere better. It was a quiet Saturday morning. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that made you want to stay in pajamas and build forts out of sofa cushions. Lily was doing just that, arranging blankets and couch pillows into a crooked castle in the living room. I was folding laundry when I heard the mail slot click. At first, I didn't think anything of it. A few envelopes slid onto the hallway floor. Bills, probably. Flyers, coupons for pizza. But there was something else. A small padded envelope. Pale yellow with glittery stickers clumsily stuck along the back seam. I picked it up. No return address. But Lily's name was written on the front in rounded handwriting, the kind that still hesitates over every Y and loops every L. I walked back into the living room and handed it to her. "You got mail, Princess." She looked up from her blanket throne, curious. "For me?" I nodded. She opened it carefully, fingers gentle and deliberate. Inside was a small silver bracelet with a heart charm and a folded note. She read it out loud. "Dear Lily, I'm sorry Grandma was mean. You're my cousin forever. I picked this with my allowance. I hope you like it. Love, Maddie." Lily looked at the bracelet for a long moment, then slipped it onto her wrist. She didn't ask if she could wear it. She just did. Then she looked up at me. "She picked it for me?" I nodded. "All by herself, I think." Lily's eyes softened. "That's nice." That was all she said, but I could see something shift in her expression. A little door cracked open again. Not to the past, but to something new. Something real. That afternoon, I sent Maddie a message. Just a simple one. "Thank you for the bracelet. Lily is wearing it right now. You made her smile today." Maddie responded with a heart emoji and said, "I miss her. Can we play sometime? Without Grandma?" And for the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. Later that night, I told Travis about the bracelet. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Kids always know who's real." "Do you think Mom put her up to it?" I asked. He shook his head. "Number, that kind of thing doesn't come from guilt. It comes from love." He was right. Maddie had seen it too. Maybe not all of it. Maybe not in the same way, but enough. Enough to recognize hurt. Enough to offer a piece of kindness. And maybe enough to start something different. I don't think my mother will ever admit what she did. Not really. People like her, they don't always say, "I was wrong." They just shift the blame, rewrite the past, pretend it was all misunderstood. But Lily's letter? That can't be undone. And Maddie's bracelet? That was proof. Proof that one brave act, one glittery envelope delivered with quiet grace, had cracked the performance. Just enough for the truth to get in. The next morning, Lily was brushing her teeth when I walked past the bathroom. She caught my reflection in the mirror and grinned. "Mommy? Yeah? I think I want to make a card for Maddie." "That's a great idea. With stickers and glitter." "Of course." She paused, then added, "But no envelope. I want to give it to her myself." I smiled. Because Lily wasn't hiding anymore. She was showing up. Not for Grandma. Not for approval, but for the people who chose her back. We didn't go back to my mother's house. Not for Easter, not for summer BBQs, not for birthdays or let's be civil brunches. There were no explosive fights, no dramatic texts, no storming out. Just silence. A slow withdrawal of something that had already been hollow for years. And for the first time in a long time, that silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like space. The kind of space where something better could grow. People always talk about cutting off toxic family, like it's a single moment. A slammed door, a pointed finger, a final blow. But in real life, it's usually quieter than that. It's a child noticing who didn't show up. It's a gift bag left missing. It's the pause in a grandmother's voice when she says, "the grandkids," and doesn't mean all of them. It's 1,000 little omissions that add up to a truth you can no longer ignore. I kept Lily's letter, the original one, the first draft we wrote together on lined paper at the kitchen table. It lives in the same drawer where I keep her hospital bracelet, a lock of her baby hair, and the photo of her first steps. Not because I want to remember the pain, but because I want to remember the moment she decided to name it. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just stood there in her little silver shoes, handed over an envelope, and said, "You forgot me again." There was something so clear about it, so calm. It wasn't a demand to be loved. It was a declaration that she had noticed. And once a child sees something for what it really is, there's no putting it back in the box. A few weeks after the brunch, we made new plans. We booked a trip, not to Disney, but to a quiet coastal town where the sand was soft and the lines were short, and Lily could eat 3 scoops of ice cream without anyone telling her to be careful with her dress. We didn't post pictures. We didn't tag anyone. We just lived it. Fully. Together. And on the last night, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the tide rolled in over Lily's tiny sandcastle, she looked up at me and said, "This was the best trip ever. No castles. No princess breakfasts. No big-ticket magic. Just us." Back home, we started making different kinds of memories. Pajamas and pancake Saturdays. Handwritten cards mailed to people who always replied. Movie nights under blanket tents lit by fairy lights. Tiny things. Small joys. But none of it felt small to Lily. Because every moment told her, "You're wanted here." That's the kind of magic we had been missing. And we were making it now. Travis told me one night, as we sat watching Lily read herself to sleep, "I think I spent too long hoping your mom would change." I nodded. Me too. I kept thinking, if we just waited long enough or said the right thing or gave her more chances, she'd see her. She never wanted to. He nodded again, slow, then added, "But Lily did." That hit harder than I expected, because he was right. Lily didn't wait for my mother to choose her. She gave her the opportunity. And when it was rejected, she didn't crumble. She just stood up anyway. Some nights I sit at the edge of Lily's bed after she's fallen asleep and think about all the things I almost said at that brunch. All the ways I wanted to scream, to defend her, to shake someone into understanding. But in the end, the loudest truth didn't come from me. It came from a child's voice. Calm, clear, certain. I don't want to be invisible anymore. And she isn't. Not in this house. Not in this family. Not in this life we're building for her. Family isn't just who's on your Christmas card list or who shares your bloodline. Family is who shows up with their whole heart. Who sees your child and doesn't measure them against anything but love. Who reads a letter in a child's handwriting and doesn't look away. I don't know if my mother ever thinks about that brunch. I don't know if she opens the drawer and finds the letter. I don't know if she'll ever understand what she lost. But I do. She lost the chance to love the best part of me. She lost the kind of magic you don't get back once it walks out your door holding the hand of the woman who finally stopped apologizing for asking to be seen. And Lily? She didn't lose anything. She found something. Her voice. Her peace and a bracelet that says, "You're my cousin forever." My hands trembled, not from fear, but from restraint. The doorman looked at me, confused, as I stood at the threshold of the tall, glass-paneled entrance to the Crown Regent, a luxury hotel nestled in the heart of Manhattan. My hotel. But I wasn't being treated like the owner today. I was being treated like an outsider. "Sorry, miss. Private event," the man said politely, not realizing who I was. Just as I reached into my clutch to show my pass, a familiar figure stepped into view. High heels clicked sharply against the marble sidewalk. Red lips curled into a practiced smirk. "Lauren?" My sister's voice dripped with disbelief and amusement. "What are you doing here?" She didn't wait for an answer. Instead, she turned to the doorman, placing a manicured hand on his arm. "She's not on the guest list," she said sweetly. Then, facing me again, "Poor girl probably can't even afford valet." Behind her, I saw my mother's face through the revolving glass door, rigid with judgment, lips pursed like she'd smelled something sour. She stepped outside, wrapped in a fur-trimmed shawl, designer sunglasses still perched on her nose despite the late hour. "Lauren," she said flatly, "don't embarrass our family. Just go home." I bit the inside of my cheek. The insult didn't sting the way it used to. Not anymore. "I'm not here to make a scene," I said calmly, sliding my hand back into my clutch. "I was invited." "By who?" My sister laughed. "The janitor? Unless you're here to bus tables or refill wine glasses, you're wasting your time. My name is Lauren. I'm 37 years old. And for the last decade, my family has believed I'm broke. 10 years ago, I left everything behind. Our family business, the suffocating expectations, and the false smiles at dinner parties. I traded their approval for risk, their inheritance for ambition, and their judgment for peace. While they laughed at my absence and pitied my failures, I was quietly building something they'd never even dream of. What they didn't know was this. The Crown Regent wasn't just a 5-star hotel. It was my flagship property. And tonight, my father's 70th birthday celebration was being hosted here, in my ballroom, under my roof. The irony would have been comical if it wasn't so painful. "You still wearing knockoffs, Michelle?" I asked, nodding toward her handbag. "Because that bag's a season old, and the real one doesn't have gold stitching." She blinked. "Excuse me?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because I knew the truth about her failing interior design company, about Mom secretly funding her lifestyle with quiet loans, and about the unpaid rent notices my property management team had sent for the last 3 months. But I wasn't here for revenge. Not yet. "You're not welcome here," my mother repeated. "This is a private event, for family and important people." I nearly laughed. Family? Important people? I'd hosted presidents, foreign dignitaries, Fortune 500 CEOs in this hotel. I'd shaken hands with people who wouldn't even take my mother's calls. Still, I stayed silent, watching, calculating, letting them dig the hole deeper. Then came the line that cracked something inside me. "Lauren," my sister sneered, "go back to wherever you came from. This place isn't for people like you. People like me." I remembered the nights I'd slept in my office, building my hospitality group from scratch. The contracts I'd negotiated over coffee instead of champagne. The properties I'd acquired when no one else believed in me. I hadn't inherited luxury. I had clawed my way up to it. The glass doors swung open again. A tall man in a sleek black suit stepped out. "Excuse me," he said, scanning the group. "Miss Lauren Hart?" I turned. "Security Director for the Crown Regent," he said, offering a respectful nod. "Your suite is ready, and the head chef is waiting for final approval on the dinner menu." My sister's jaw dropped. The doorman blinked. My mother's breath caught in her throat. "Would you like me to escort you inside, ma'am?" he asked. I smiled gently and stepped forward. "That won't be necessary." Then I turned to Michelle and my mother. "But perhaps you two would like to follow me, since you're so concerned about appearances." They didn't move, so I walked past them, my heels echoing through the marble foyer I had designed myself. Past the chandelier I commissioned from Italy, toward the elevator that led to the penthouse suite I'd handpicked for this very evening. And as the doors closed behind me, I finally exhaled. They thought they'd shut me out. But what they didn't realize? They were standing at the entrance to a building I owned. And this was only the beginning. The elevator hummed softly as it climbed, the polished brass interior reflecting my calm expression. But inside, my heart beat steadily like a war drum. I didn't feel anger, not anymore. That emotion had burned out years ago. What I felt now was precision. I had spent the last decade building a life in silence. Not out of shame, but strategy. You see, when people think you're nothing, they reveal everything. And my family? They'd revealed more than they ever should have. As the elevator rose, so did the memories. 12 years ago, I stood in my parents' living room, proudly announcing I had declined a job at the family law firm. I'd been offered a junior partner track, safe, respected, and suffocating. I told them I was moving to Chicago to start a hospitality business instead. My mother's response had been swift. Hotels? What are you going to be? A maid? And my sister? She had laughed so hard she nearly dropped her wine glass. You've always had champagne taste and water income, Michelle had said, sneering. I moved to Chicago the next week, with 2 suitcases, a used laptop, and a credit score barely holding on. I worked 3 jobs, front desk at a 2-star hotel, cleaning Airbnb units on weekends, and delivering food in the evenings. Every spare dollar I earned went into learning, licensing, networking, building. The first hotel I purchased had been a bankrupt shell in Milwaukee. Everyone told me it was a mistake. 2 years later, it had a wait list and 5 national awards. Now the Crown Regent was my 6th luxury property. And the building we were in? I didn't just own the hotel. I owned the entire block. The elevator dinged softly. Penthouse. The doors opened into the private pre-function area, a sleek marble space lined with towering orchids, dim chandeliers, and the faint sound of a string quartet tuning in the main ballroom beyond. Miss Hart. A voice broke the silence. It was Rachel, my operations director. She walked toward me briskly, tablet in hand. We're ready to begin whenever you are. The birthday dinner is set for 7:30. Chef Thierry is finalizing the dessert course and... She hesitated. Your family hasn't arrived yet. I smirked. Oh, they've arrived. They're just still at the front door. Her eyes widened slightly. They didn't recognize you again? No, I said, lips curling. And they told me not to embarrass the family. Rachel blinked. Would you like me to address it? I shook my head. Let it unfold naturally. We stepped into the ballroom together. The room shimmered, soft golden lights glinting off crystal glassware and the handcrafted silver cutlery I'd imported from Japan. Each table was draped in white silk. The head table at the far end boasted a full floral sculpture, arching over the birthday banner that read, Happy 70th, Robert Hart. My father, the man who hadn't called me in 6 years. Not after I refused to fund Michelle's boutique launch. Not after I declined to bail out their firm during their quiet bankruptcy scare. I could have saved them, but I didn't. Not because I wanted revenge, because I was tired of being asked to fix problems I was never allowed to solve until things were already on fire. Would you like to be seated early? Rachel asked. I looked at the gold placard bearing my name. Lauren Hart, founder, Crown Regent Group. Number I'll wait until they arrive. And right on cue, the elevator dinged again. The doors opened slowly. Michelle stepped out first, visibly rattled. Her voice came out clipped. This must be a mistake. Behind her, my mother's heels tapped sharply, echoing through the silent ballroom. Her eyes scanned the space like a battlefield. She froze when she saw me. I was no longer in the same dress. I had changed into a sleek navy evening gown with diamond accents, a gown gifted to me by the designer himself after sponsoring his show in Milan. Lauren, my mother's voice cracked. What is going on here? I believe you said this space was for family and distinguished guests. I replied smoothly. And since I own the building, I figured I'd qualify. Michelle flushed. You don't own this hotel. I raised an eyebrow. You're right, I own the building. The hotel is just one of 6 business entities under my group that operate here. The room fell dead silent. A waiter discreetly stepped forward with champagne, offering my mother a glass. She declined, her hand shaking. Then came the sound of my father's voice behind them. Where have you all been? The guests are asking questions. He paused, seeing me. Lauren? I turned, expression neutral. Hi, Dad. He stepped forward slowly, confusion spreading across his face. I thought you weren't invited. I wasn't, I said evenly, but I'm hosting. And that's when it clicked. His eyes moved across the room, from the staff whispering my name to the branded signage to Rachel standing respectfully at my side. And then, as if summoned by fate, the event's master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage and cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate Mr. Robert Hart's 70th birthday. We'd like to take a moment to recognize and thank the host of tonight's celebration, Ms. Lauren Hart, owner of the Crown Regent and founder of Hart Hospitality Group. Applause erupted. And in that moment, my father's face crumpled. Not with anger, but with something worse. Regret. The applause faded, leaving a thick silence hanging in the air like fog. My father stood there, shoulders square yet uncertain, blinking like the lights above had just flickered too fast for him to process. You're hosting this? He asked, as if still needing confirmation. Yes, I said plainly, stepping down from the small platform to face him. Welcome to the Crown Regent. I hope you enjoy your evening. He looked around again. Really looked this time. At the grand piano in the corner, the custom floral installation in his favorite colors, the framed photo wall we'd arranged behind the head table filled with moments from his life. Moments I had personally selected. I watched his lips part slightly, like he wanted to say something, but no words came. Michelle stepped forward, her voice brittle. This doesn't make sense. Last we heard, you were living in a 1-bedroom somewhere in Queens. I turned to her, smiling faintly. And where did you hear that? She hesitated. That's right, I said. You didn't. You assumed. Because when I stopped asking for approval, you stopped paying attention. My mother placed a hand on Michelle's arm, trying to maintain her poise. This is all very dramatic, Lauren, but what exactly are you trying to prove? I tilted my head slightly. Nothing. I'm not here to prove anything. I just wanted to celebrate Dad's birthday. In my own hotel. Then I turned to my father again. I thought you might like that. You always said you wanted to visit New York more. So I brought New York to you. He nodded slowly, still dazed. I thought you left all this behind. I left you behind, I corrected gently, when you made it clear that I wasn't welcome unless I followed the exact path you laid out. That stung, and I could see it. He swallowed hard, glancing toward my mother, who now refused to meet his eyes. You could have told us, he said at last. You could have let us know what you were building. I could have, I agreed. But would you have listened? Or would you have called it a hobby? A distraction? Another one of my phases, like Mom used to say? He didn't answer. Rachel approached quietly, handing me a phone. Sorry to interrupt, she said. But your investment advisor is on the line. He says it's regarding the Midtown acquisition. Very time-sensitive. I nodded and turned away for a moment, answering, Yes, go ahead. They countered? Okay, tell them we'll go to 12.5 but not a cent more. And if they don't sign by noon tomorrow, we walk. I ended the call and turned back to my stunned family. Sorry about that, I said calmly. Just finalizing the purchase of a 30-story tower in Midtown. One of our competitors went under. Thought it was worth the grab. Michelle let out a strangled laugh. This isn't real. It's a stunt. Some kind of elaborate show. I didn't answer her. I didn't need to. Just then, the room's side door opened and Mr. Kwan entered, the hotel's head architect. He walked directly up to me with 2 revised blueprint rolls tucked under his arm. "Ms. Hart," he said, bowing slightly. "The redesigns for the new rooftop suite are complete. I've left the copies in your office." "Thank you," I said, taking one. "This is my family, by the way. They're just getting acquainted with the Crown Regent." He nodded respectfully and left. The silence between us thickened. "How—" My mother's voice cracked. "How did I do it?" I offered. "By working while you were gossiping. By learning while you were doubting. By staying quiet while you mocked me. And by building while you were busy looking down on me." Then I walked to the long banquet table and picked up one of the menus. Custom printed, personally approved by me. I handed it to Michelle. "Page 3, I said. She flipped it open and froze. "Wait, this cocktail? The Michelle?" I nodded. "Inspired by your dramatic personality and your love of overpriced elderflower liqueur." She stared at me, mouth open, the room again falling into uneasy quiet. My father slowly walked to the table and picked up a glass of wine. "So this is who you are now?" he asked. "No," I said softly. "This is who I've always been. You just didn't want to see it." For a moment, no one spoke. Then a guest, one of my father's colleagues, approached him, shaking his hand, whispering, "I had no idea Lauren was your daughter. That's incredible. You must be so proud." My father opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He nodded slowly, turned toward me, and asked, "Do you think we can talk later?" I didn't respond. I just gave a small smile and walked away, heels clicking on the marble floor, echoing louder than any applause. Because sometimes silence says everything. I made my way through the ballroom, past clinking glasses and murmured whispers, feeling the heat of 100 stolen glances. Some guests nodded in recognition. Others blinked in confusion, trying to reconcile the woman in the evening gown with the daughter who was struggling, estranged, or gone off the rails. That was the story my mother told, after all. That I'd gone chasing impossible dreams, living paycheck to paycheck, wasting my potential. What she never told them was how she had blocked my number the day I refused to sign on as legal counsel for Michelle's failing business. Or how she had sent back my first wedding invitation with the words, "Not appropriate for the family," scribbled in red ink. Tonight she looked like a cornered politician at a press conference, smiling tightly while her eyes darted, calculating every move. "Lauren," a voice called behind me. I turned to see Gavin, Michelle's fiancé, approaching with the practiced confidence of a man used to getting what he wanted. Tall, clean-cut, expensive suit. But his tie was slightly askew now, and a bead of sweat clung to his brow. He reached me and offered a weak smile. "Hey, didn't expect to see you here tonight." "You and the rest of your entourage," I said evenly. He chuckled nervously. "Yeah, look, I just wanted to say, this place is incredible. Seriously, it's stunning." "Thank you," I said. "It's my pride and joy." His jaw flexed. "So, just to be clear, you really own all this? The Crown Regent?" "Yes," I replied. "And the tower across the street, and the River Plaza where your bank's Midtown branch is located." He blinked. "That lease your VP mentioned last quarter?" I continued, sipping from a flute of sparkling water. "It crosses my desk tomorrow. Your team's hoping for a renewal." Gavin's smile vanished. Wait. Are you serious? They didn't tell me you were the landlord." "Why would they?" I said, lowering my glass. "They don't know I'm your future sister-in-law. They just know me as Lauren Hart, CEO of Hart Hospitality." He rubbed the back of his neck. "This complicates things." "Not for me," I said smoothly. "I treat all tenants equally, especially ones who underestimate my family ties." He opened his mouth to respond, but was cut off by Michelle, who stormed up, eyes wild. What are you doing? She hissed. Why are you talking to her? She owns your venue, Gavin whispered harshly. Maybe you should ask her why our lease hasn't been approved yet. Michelle turned to me, stunned. That's not true. Oh? I raised an eyebrow. You think I didn't know about your firm's pending expansion? Your CFO has been begging my commercial real estate division for a property in Soho. The one on Mercer Street? Michelle went pale. Yeah? I said softly. That one. My voice didn't rise. I didn't gloat. I let the facts land like slow-rolling thunder. Behind Michelle, my mother approached, wine glass in hand, eyes a little too bright. Lauren, dear, she said with forced warmth, there's no need to bring business into a family celebration. You brought family into business when you used mine to leverage your social position, I replied, and then mocked me for building mine. She sighed dramatically. I was just trying to protect you. From failure, from embarrassment. By erasing me? I asked. By telling everyone I wasn't invited? By blocking the door to my own building? For once, she had no comeback. The orchestra began to play softly, cueing dinner service. Waitstaff in white jackets moved like choreography, placing dishes down in perfect rhythm. My staff, my menu, my name on every bottle of the custom wine pairing. And yet, as my mother stared at the silverware, she looked like she didn't recognize any of it. Why didn't you tell us? She asked again, her voice quieter now. Why didn't you let us be proud? I met her eyes, unflinching. Because you only feel pride when there's an audience, I said, and I didn't need yours to become who I am. Just then, my assistant approached and whispered, the mayor's chief of staff has arrived. She's hoping to speak with you before dessert. Of course, I said. Let her know I'll join her in 10 minutes. As my assistant walked away, Michelle's mouth hung open. The mayor? Yes, I said. We're discussing a new public-private initiative, urban redevelopment. I'll be heading the Hospitality Advisory Board. My mother clutched her necklace. But this is beyond hotels. I nodded. That's because I'm no longer just in the hotel business. Then I stood tall, my shoulders back, the city lights glinting through the penthouse windows behind me. I'm in the business, I said slowly, of building legacies. Dinner was nearly over. Crystal glasses clinked faintly as the last drops of vintage Bordeaux swirled in wide-rimmed stems. Laughter and polite chatter filled the room, but only from the guests who hadn't yet connected the dots. My family, however, sat in eerie silence at the head table, their meals half-touched, eyes darting, calculating. I stood a few feet away, speaking with the mayor's chief of staff about tax incentives for green renovations. Yet I could feel their unease ripple across the room like static. My father hadn't spoken in nearly 20 minutes. That wasn't like him. A man who built his life in courtrooms, commanding attention with ease, now sat muted, his fork idle in his hand. His name was etched in gold on the place card, and yet he looked like a guest at someone else's event. Which, of course, he was. I excused myself from the mayor's team and walked back toward the family table. Conversations around us slowed, just slightly, enough for me to notice. People were watching, listening, and I didn't mind. I pulled out the empty seat next to my father and sat down, folding my hands in my lap. The silence between us stretched tight. I have to ask, he said finally, his voice low. Why didn't you tell me? The words were simple, but behind them was a sea of everything left unsaid. The disappointment, the dismissals, the missed birthdays and ignored calls, the legacy he expected to control, and the one I'd built without him. Because you never asked, I replied. He winced. You always assumed you knew who I was. What I was capable of, I continued quietly. You thought success meant following your path. And when I chose mine, you decided I'd failed before I'd even begun. He looked down at his plate. I never meant to make you feel that way. You didn't have to mean it, I said. You just had to say it. Over and over. Loud enough for everyone to believe it, including me. Michelle shifted in her seat across the table. Dad was just trying to protect the family name. I turned to her slowly. By lying? By telling people I was struggling while you tried to rent an apartment in a building you didn't know I owned? Her mouth opened, then shut. I pulled a slim envelope from my purse and placed it on the table in front of my father. What's this? He asked cautiously. A deed, I said. To a villa in the French Riviera. I bought it a year ago. Fully staffed, ocean view, private beach. He stared at it, confused. It's yours, I added. A birthday gift, from the daughter who apparently couldn't afford a hotel dinner. Michelle let out a soft gasp. You're giving away real estate now? She muttered. I'm giving back, I said, because that's what I choose to do, with or without your applause. My mother leaned forward, voice cracking slightly. You still care? After everything? I nodded. I care, but I've learned to care without needing validation from people who only show up when it's convenient. There was a pause. Then, from across the room, the hotel's general manager approached our table. Excuse me, Miss Hart, he said politely, but the press is requesting a quick statement regarding the Crown Regent's expansion announcement. Should I tell them you'll come down shortly? I nodded. Give me 5 minutes. He bowed slightly and retreated. My family stared. You're making a statement? My father asked. There's a press conference downstairs, I said. They're unveiling the official plans for my 7th hotel. It'll sit next to the Crown Regent, connected by an atrium I designed myself. He looked stunned. You're expanding this building? Not just expanding, I replied. Redefining the skyline. Michelle reached for her glass, her hand trembling slightly. You're not just successful. You're powerful. I had to be, I said, my voice gentle. You don't get heard when you whisper from the sidelines. Then I stood. I'm heading down to speak with the press. You're welcome to join. They didn't move. I turned to walk away, then stopped and looked back one last time. You all spent years trying to shut the door on me, laughing at my setbacks, dismissing my wins, but you forgot something. They looked up. I don't knock anymore, I said softly. I own the building. Then I walked toward the private elevator, heels echoing against the marble, head held high. And for the first time in my life, every step forward was completely my own. The cameras flashed as I stepped onto the press platform, flanked by the city's Economic Development Council and the mayor's chief of staff. Behind us, a large rendering of the new Hart Atrium was unveiled, a gleaming glass connector between the Crown Regent and what would soon become the tallest luxury wellness resort on the East Coast. Reporters leaned forward, microphones angled in. The air buzzed. I spoke calmly, clearly, deliberately. We broke ground on this project 3 years ago, I began, with a vision that went beyond brick and glass. I didn't want to just build another hotel. I wanted to create a space that redefined what it means to belong, where elegance didn't mean exclusion, where no one stood outside the doors of something they built, locked out because someone decided they weren't enough. The crowd hushed. Cameras clicked. Because I know what that feels like, I continued, to stand on the threshold of a place that should have been home, only to be told you're not welcome. I know what it's like to be measured by old standards, by names on doors that you were never invited to enter. I paused and looked up at the rendering behind me. So I built my own door. Applause erupted, and behind the press, just out of sight, I saw them. My family. Still standing. Still watching. The weight of realization carved into every line of their faces. Later, when the crowd began to thin and the camera crews packed up, I stepped down from the podium and walked back into the lobby. I paused for a moment, soaking in the familiar scent of white lilies and polished wood, the warm hush of conversation in the lounge, the gentle music from the piano by the bar. This place wasn't just a hotel. It was a monument to every step I'd taken alone. Every night I doubted myself. Every no that had pushed me to build a better yes. Every silence that taught me how to roar without raising my voice. As I turned toward the elevators, I heard my name. Lauren. It was my father. He approached slowly, hands in his pockets. For the first time in my adult life, his voice held no authority, only uncertainty. That was powerful, he said. Thank you. I didn't realize how much I had missed, he admitted. You didn't want to realize, I said gently. He nodded, accepting it. Is it too late? He asked quietly. To know you again? I studied him for a moment, not out of spite, but truthfully. This was the man who once told me that ambition was unbecoming of a daughter, who said legacy belonged to those who followed orders, not dreams. I don't know, I answered honestly. Knowing someone requires listening, respect, not just proximity. He sighed, looking down. I was wrong, Lauren. Terribly wrong. I know, I said softly. But tonight wasn't about proving that. He looked up. Then what was it about? I took a deep breath, then smiled. Not for him, but for me. It was about taking my seat at the table, I said. The one I built. The one no one could pull out from under me again. A tear slipped down his cheek. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the envelope I had given him earlier. The deed to the villa. I can't accept this, he said. It's too much. I stepped closer. You don't have to accept the gift, but maybe finally you can accept the daughter who gave it. He looked at me, really looked, and for the first time in decades I felt seen. Not pitied, not doubted. Seen. Michelle and my mother stood a few feet away, uncertain and silent. They didn't interrupt. Not this time. I turned to them and nodded. I'm not angry. Not anymore. But I'm not erasing the past to make anyone feel better either. My mother opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. Her eyes were glossy. Her hands clutched each other as if trying to hold something together that had already fallen apart. As I stepped into the elevator, I faced them one last time. Family isn't about blood, I said. It's about who claps when you rise, not who disappears when you fall. The doors began to close. And for the record, I added, smiling faintly, I never needed your table. Mine's bigger. Ding. The elevator rose toward my private suite, the lights of the city flickering beneath me like stars catching up to their owner. And in that moment, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt free.